Hello, my name is Tristan Todd. I'm a field solution architect with Pure Storage. I'm also a vExpert, VMUG Leader in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from, and I was a VMware employee for about 10.5 years in various roles. Now that I work for a storage company, I spend a lot of my time evangelizing our technology that we build at Pure, but also embracing the technology that VMware has introduced into the SDDC solution. So I want to talk a little bit about vVols and a pragmatic approach to vVols adoption. Quick agenda there. We are going to talk about patterns of failure and keys to success towards the end. Then I'll provide a few resources for you as well. So vVols are really a well-orchestrated system of raw device maps. They offer the same performance, the direct access to storage from the host hypervisor passed to the VM. But the vVols are a much more modern way to present raw capacity or raw performance to a host. There is no file system. There's no file system structure with vVols because you're actually presenting volumes, data stores, LUNs as virtual disks to the virtual machine. That means that we can data reduce really efficiently. When you actually delete data on a virtual disk, we can actually delete it for real, freeing up that capacity for other workloads. We don't have to pre-provision storage capacity because a vVol is thin by default. Storage policy-based management is the bulk of what I'll talk about as far as value. The built-in automation in SPBM, storage policy-based management, has been around since 2015. Don't ever complain about the cost of vCenter licenses if you're not using something like SPBM to manage data service policy. It's been available. vVols have been available in vSphere since vSphere 6 was introduced, around 2015 timeframe. Over the years, vVols, the SPBM policy construct, the VASA provider has been developed quite a bit, refined, and made better and better with each vSphere release. And finally, integrated replication management. If your data is important to your users or your business, then having replication management built into the storage stack at the vDisk level is critical. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. So when you compare VMFS, where we've spent a lot of our time over the last 20 years, to vVols, it's a vastly different approach. I'm not going to really speak to the slides, but I'll just explain one of the biggest challenges that I face with VMFS volumes, large VMFS volumes. If I have a large VMFS volume and I place a lot of virtual machine workloads on that volume, every one of those virtual machines really needs to have the kind of the similar performance requirements, similar, I need to have a handle on what their capacity life cycle is, how big are they going to get, how much storage am I going to have to add over the years. And I have to apply the same security and data protection policies at that data store level, even though it might not be appropriate for some of the individual VM workloads. So if I was able to do the same policy assignments, provide the same data services, more flexibility in capacity forecasting and management, and do it at the vDisk or the VM level, that to me is a big win. Every virtual machine is made up of 4 vVols, 2 at a minimum. A config vVol, which is kind of the DNA of the virtual machine. It's where your VMX files live. For example, every disk is a vDisk vVol. If you use a virtual swap and you actually place that swap file where your VMs live, then you have a vSwap vVol. And if you take a snapshot of a VM and you capture memory state, then you'll have another vVol. So it's 2, maybe 4 at a minimum. Every vDisk is a vVol. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits, and then I'm going to go back to those 4 different types of vVols and tell you why that can be a challenge. This policy that I've got up on the screen is pretty elaborate, but it represents a lot of data service capabilities that are assigned to individual vDisks, and it controls snapshot schedule, quality of service limits, replication target, and workload placement. And I have a simple policy called production gold. I tag any VM or vDisk with that production gold policy, and the SPBM policy orchestrator will check for compliance continuously for the entire life of that VM, which means if my colleague Steve storage vMotions the VM to the wrong storage volume or wrong storage array, it's a policy violation. Steve gets a ServiceNow ticket in his inbox assigned to him, hey, move that thing back, right? You're in violation of the gold policy. And that policy engine doesn't sleep, it doesn't take PTO, it's constantly checking for alignment with best practices. If you have a tier 1 workload or a gold workload and you assign the policy, if you have to promote that VM to a different service level or demote it, you just change the policy and the settings go into effect instantly. And you didn't touch the storage array at all, ever. The second thing that's cool about vVols, we can actually break a VM up and apply individual vVols policies to each of the individual disks. A large Oracle server, you may have a different data protection or performance policy assigned to the OS disk versus the log directory versus the local backup volume. So a lot of our customers, a lot of the people that I work with, have different policies for application servers that have different volumes that are deployed with purpose. vVols are very extensible. You can attach them to anything. It's a data store, okay? It's a LUN, it's a volume, which means we can attach them to other VMs. And on Pure, this is instant. We can attach them to bare metal servers. We can attach them to Azure VMs in native form. We can attach them to Amazon EC2 instances. It is a volume. It is a data store, right? So that's a key concept. It means that vVol snapshots, as long as they're efficient, fast, hopefully metadata-based, you can actually flexibly replicate that snapshotted vVol and attach it to a cloud of your choice effectively. VMware has an excellent white paper, and I think I've got a link at the end of the slide, but it's a paper that compares the performance implications with managed snapshots, VMFS, vSAN, and vVols. And I'll just draw your attention to maybe the performance graph on the bottom. The blue line there represents the performance hit you take when you take a single managed software-based snapshot of a virtual machine. As soon as you snapshot, you use the managed snapshot, the software snapshot that you have in the vSphere interface, you're attaching a boat anchor to your VM. You're attaching a performance boat anchor to your VM. With vVols, there's no change in performance. That green line at the top, that flat line, performance is consistent. The cool thing about vVols, the kind of the built-in hotness of vVols, is when you do a managed snapshot, when you actually go into the vSphere client, right-click a VM and take a managed snapshot, you're actually ordering a hardware-based snapshot to the storage provider. If you run good hardware, good storage hardware, and you should, that should be a very fast snapshot. And if it's metadata bound, it doesn't mean you have just chewed up a bunch more capacity. When you go to delete that snapshot, it's similarly much faster. And you can have as many layers of snapshots as you want, really, until you reach some kind of object limit. So you don't have that 2-day wait to commit a snap or a managed snapshot that you took 2 months ago. You don't have to wait for that thing to effectively get combined in the VMDK level. Anybody ever experienced that pain of the too old snapshot? It's fun, isn't it? I assume everybody has a warning or an alert for snapshots that are too big or snapshots that are too old. All right, awesome. So I'm a data junkie, and I distinguish between the performance and capacity information that vCenter provides us, which is front-end data, right? That is normalized, it's averages of averages the longer the data lives in the vCenter database. I prefer to actually see real-time back-end performance metrics and capacity metrics. So we actually are able to, with vVols, see that information at the virtual disk level. So we can see data reduction benefit on the top right. I've got 2 disks and the parent volume or the config volume. And one of my volumes, I'm getting 36-to-1 data reduction. If I come into work tomorrow and that disk is at 10-to-1, right, my overall data reduction for that VM has changed. I can at least see which disk changed. And I can call the app owner and say, hey, what did you do on your D drive? What changed? Did you install an app? Did you double the size of your database overnight? What's going on? Is there a malware event on that particular system? Performance is similarly attractive at a vVols level if you have access to backend performance numbers within the vSphere web client like we're depicting here. We can see throughput, latency, and I/O statistics at a very granular level. Much more accurate data here than what we see at in any of the virtual machine statistics that are fed off of VM tools. So a big barrier, going back to this diagram, a big barrier to vDols adoption for most of us, older geeks is We're used to bucketing our VMs, meaning we create a volume, we create a data store, and we drop some VMs in there. Maybe we call that data store production, or maybe the light blue VMs live in the light blue data store because that's where there's a light blue policy. Remember, every virtual machine is made up of at least 2 and maybe 4 vVols, right? You with me so far? So in the old days, we may have 10 data stores or 100 data stores to manage as a storage team, as a virtualization team. With vVols, this might be what all of those data stores live. Remember, these are all volumes, individual volumes that, traditionally we managed as LUN objects. This is terrifying. This is herding kittens on steroids. This is the corral of puppies that were in the expo, but like 4 acres in size with that much more dogs. Luckily, SPVM is what ties all these things together and makes them approachable. Because if you have a policy engine and you're tagging your policy to your VMs, it manages all of this chaos. So here's how you fail with vVols. I'll talk about failure and then we'll talk a little bit about success. Same basic talk, but we're going to talk about it in 2 different ways. If you don't consider how you're doing backups, how you're taking snapshots, how you're doing backups, what software you're using for backups, and you implement vVols, you're probably going to fail. You want to know how your Veeam, your Commvault, whatever rubric or Cohesity or something like that, how it deals with vVols, what their capabilities are. You have to consider or reconsider your operational processes because things change, right? The way you provision storage in ye old days is very different from how we do it with vVols because it's largely deployed by the person or the script or the automation that's deploying the virtual machine workload itself. If you don't take into consideration your roles and the privileges of users in vCenter, you really should, because vVols changes who has the ability to create storage objects and consume storage capacity. So you have to think about what is the impact of shifting the responsibility for making smart decisions about how big to make disks, where to apply a policy. If you don't take into consideration analytics, dashboarding, reporting, scoreboarding, metering, this is a pattern of failure too, because we don't look at a data store, a vVols data store and look at capacity. We get our capacity or performance information at the vDisk or the volume group level. And we're not looking at data store, the macro data store for virtual machine performance if we can actually look all the way down at the virtual machine level or virtual disk level. Does that make sense? A lot of times we like to, our major monolithic data store with 1,000 VDI desktops in it, we want to look at performance there. We actually can go a lot finer, look at a finer grain of sand. I mean, we have to kind of change our tooling and our methods sometimes. If you don't discuss the value of vVols with your stakeholders, the policy orchestration, the consistency of data services, the ability to take instant snapshots as part of your backup, part of your lifecycle process, the ability to attach any one of those virtual volume instantly to another VM, really attractive for developers that want to take maybe dev code and attach it to a production server instance. You're kind of missing out on kind of selling this technology to your teams. And if you don't consider the best practices, the vSphere best practices, your storage vendor's best practices, failure scenarios, what can go wrong with vVols? Because things can and do go wrong sometimes. So how to win? Don't go full throttle out the gate. Test with a small sample size, get used to vVols in the lab, do the hands-on lab. Did anybody do the hands-on lab this week? Do that hands-on lab a couple of times, or maybe get a lab set up in your home office or your place of business, and practice a little bit. Get used to SPVM policy management. Get used to doing PowerShell or REST API-driven management of those vVols, perhaps. Don't sit down at the console and start building crazy, complicated SPVM policies at the console. Go to a coffee shop or a bar, get a napkin, bring a friend, and sit there and map out, what would a gold policy do for us? What could a gold policy? And map that out before you actually try to commit it to code. Consider those user personas in vSphere. Make sure people don't have too many privileges, but make sure they have enough. Use VM service level tags. Actually, about an hour ago, I did a session showing how you could very easily use Power CLI to go after machines with a certain tag, and then assign an SPVM policy corresponding to that tag. Consider choosing a storage platform that has an integration that allows you to build an SPVM policy in the vSphere web client, but at the same time, a storage policy is created on the storage backend. The place I work, we offer that capability. It's great. It means that the storage team doesn't have to build a protection policy, call me and say, hey, we built a policy and we called it silver. And I have to say, it's supposed to be called gold. And then once it's built, then I have to build a separate policy and attach to that storage policy. We do it in one workflow. It's very elegant. And then think about the amazing capabilities of what you could do. The art of the possible is think what you could do with an individual volume that you could snapshot, replicate to Azure, and attach to an Azure VM. Really, really cool possibilities once you have that ability. So thank you very much for your time. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. I've got a blog that I update occasionally. I'm just getting started as a blogger. So late in my career, it's a little weird. But thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at next year's Explore conference. Thanks so much.